Hey everyone, what's up? Ben here, and we are back with another year of fantasy football. We're doing it on Zoom this year. We're going to try to make things big this year, go big, and we're starting off early talking about free agency. And now you kind of get to see the guys. For a while you didn't, we were doing it on Facebook, but now we're going to be broadcasting everywhere, putting it everywhere. So let's start with Doug. Doug, welcome back. How are you surviving the coronavirus?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm fine. I'm fortunate enough to still have work because of myself working at the hospital. So I'm fortunate to still have a fixed income. I'm fortunate to be safe, and been trying to make the most of it.
Yeah, and we got Garrett Harrison back. Garrett currently is playing some Madden and getting himself ready. Hey, we're about 5 months out, Garrett, but I mean, this free agent
Oh
hectic so far, man. I'm ready for it.
yeah, dude, same. It's crazy.
You can see Garrett sporting it up there, playing the Madden already, and he's ready for another fantasy football season. I know he's ready to talk. We had a lot of fun last year. We did a little competition to see who had the better picks for the year. We did a lot of cool stuff. We did the Facebook Live stuff with the guest pickers. And the only thing we did last year really pre fantasy football was just talk about each team, go through the divisions. But this year we plan on talking about free agency, the trades, all the big news each week, posting a video up until the draft, talking about the draft, and then getting into the summertime. And we'll do the same thing, going over each division, seeing who we like in those divisions, and talk about every team to try to give you guys some perspective on this year's fantasy football. See if we can help you in any way. I know last year we did really well with our advice. I know our sleepers and our people that are ball out and some fallouts, we call them. I know we did pretty well with those every week. We had a lot of fun. So if you enjoy this, make sure to subscribe to the page and share. It means a lot. And we'll dig into it. So first, let's talk about the Titans. We're kind of just going to go by date of when the trades and everything happened, and we'll just talk about it. So let's start with the Titans. They signed Ryan Tannehill to a 4-year, $118 million deal. He went off last year. It started with Mariota. Mariota was cold. They bring in Tannehill, and the Titans looked really good at the end of the season. They made a big push. I mean, mainly because of Derrick Henry, who they franchise tagged this year. But let's take a look at Tannehill. Last year, 20th overall in fantasy, according to NFL.com. He had 2,742 yards, 22 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. He also had 4 rushing touchdowns, averaging about 20 fantasy points per games in what he played. So let's start with Doug. I mean, just dig into it. What do you think about Tannehill? Do you think he can have another great year this year, or is this going to be a bust for the Titans?
I'm kind of conflicted on it, but I think that he's always been good. It's just he's always been in a horrible situation. I feel like a lot of Ryan Tannehill's shortcomings, other than the injuries, are solely on Adam Gase's shoulders. And him getting out of Miami is one of the best things that could ever happen to him.
Yeah, I agree. What are you thinking, Garrett, on this Tannehill deal? I know you're a big Tennessee guy, so I'm sure you have some insight on it. You like the team. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, man, they're like my second favorite team. I love watching them play. Honestly, I thought it was good for them to sign him. I'm a little upset that they franchise tagged Derrick Henry. I think he deserves to be paid. He's proven himself the past 2 years that he is an elite running back. I mean, look, Zeke Zeke got paid, and he's young, and I just really feel like if Derrick Henry blows up this year, it's time to pay him. And maybe Tannehill is making a little bit too much money now for handing the ball off, but he did prove himself down the stretch that he can be a playoff quarterback, caliber quarterback. And he got the ball in the receiver's hands when it needed to be. Didn't make many mistakes. So I think overall it's a good signing for the Tennessee Titans, and they're really moving in the right direction.
I think he's good for the role too. I mean, when you have a guy like Derrick Henry, just look what he did at the end of the year. Just think that was it that first playoff game where they barely passed the ball at all? Like Henry was just a tank.
I think they ran the ball like 30-plus times.
Yeah, I mean, when you got a guy like Derrick Henry on your team, you don't really have to pass the ball. And I feel like Tannehill did a good job for what he had. I mean, I see the numbers getting a little bit more touchdowns, maybe getting closer to that 30 touchdown mark, maybe like 26, 28, a little bit more touchdowns. Interception about the same. But when you got a guy like Derrick Henry on your team, you really don't – when you don't need to pass the ball, don't do it when you can give it to Henry. But Doug, let's go to you. Do you think that Tannehill, though, if something were to happen to Derrick Henry, can lead this team in the passing game with who he has at wide receiver?
I think he can. I was going to make the point earlier that he's one of those guys that he's a good, like real life quarterback, but not a great fantasy quarterback.
Yeah.
In the sense that he's not going to put up fantasy points, but he's still going to do what needs to be done to win games.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he averaged 20 per game, so I mean, it's there. I think he's a good backup quarterback, but he's not a guy that you're going to go out to start for you for the whole year. And I don't see his numbers changing enough to prove that this year, especially when you got a guy like Derrick Henry. Now, if Derrick Henry goes down, you could potentially see those numbers go up, but the question is, are those interceptions going to go up? Is he going to be throwing the ball too much where he's just not that elite quarterback that he can keep those interceptions down? So,
yeah, and the big thing is he doesn't have the talent at receiver, I think, around him enough to succeed. Like, yeah, they have A.J. Brown, and he's been really good for them, but at the same time, he's still probably just a number 2 wide receiver to on every other team. So they need to try and find a way to get more receiving depth. They'll probably work on that through the draft this year.
Yeah.
And that's going to be what they need to do to get Ryan Tannehill to succeed long term. Because, with Derrick Henry, if he has another big year, it's getting to the point of, will they sign him?
Yeah.
Because we all know you don't pay running backs big money. You never do.
Right. And is he worth it? I mean, the last 2 years we've seen it. He's gone off at the end of the year. Like, he is coming in with the last 5-6 games, putting up 3 touchdowns, averaging about 3 touchdowns a game in that range. Like, he's not that great if you look at his numbers at the beginning of the season. But then the last 2 years, he just went off as a number 1 running back at the last, 5-6 games. And so, to your point, I can agree with that. Are they going to pay him or not? Let's jump over to Garrett. What are you thinking about this?
Well, I'm going to agree with Doug. Tennessee has a lot of number 2 wide receivers. I don't think they really have a solid number 1. Hey, this is the guy we're going to go with. If you look at the past couple games, like all the games that Tannehill played, he didn't really just, target one dude mainly. He spaced the ball around, which was great. But at the same time, it's like, I don't think all those players are like, hey, give me the ball. I'll be that guy. I don't see him being that kind of guy. Maybe Corey Davis because he's been in the league for a little bit. But I don't know how I feel on that. I think they should have gone out and go out maybe get somebody to have somebody else in the receiving crew. But overall, I mean, it's not bad. Henry, he might start slow in the season, but when he comes on hot, that is the perfect time for fantasy football playoffs. That is the perfect time for playoffs in general. So he is always going to be that dude that you're going to want either in the first, second, or third round if he's available. I mean, honestly, if he's available this year in the first round, depending on what I pick, if I'm first, probably not going to take him. But if seventh, eighth, he's available, I'll probably take a gamble on him because he's that kind of dude. So my point is, if he does blow up again at the end of the season and leads that team into a couple playoff victories, and can write him out, this dude does deserve to be paid. So.
Yeah, I have to agree. Real quick, we'll just bounce back to Doug. We'll just say, Mariota's in Vegas now. The Raiders are in Vegas. So real quick, who do you think they're going to be starting, Derek Carr or Marcus Mariota?
All right, first off, before I get into this, you mean to tell me they're in Vegas now, and now I need to correct myself to say Vegas Raiders? Like, it's been – because I've been saying San Diego Chargers for years, and I still say it. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have to work on that. But I think it's gonna put Derek Carr on his toes a bit. I think we might get into like a 1A, 1B going into training camp. I think we all know that Gruden loved Mariota. You saw that whenever he did Gruden's QB camp with him during his draft year.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a little competition for Derek Carr. I think there's a target on his back at this point, and he can't really get complacent because Gruden will throw Mariota in at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, so I agree. I don't know about Garrett. I think it's going to start Carr, but I think Carr's got to be on his toes, though, because if he has a couple bad games to start, Mariota could be getting that job. You could kind of see it kind of like a Miami thing last year between Rosen and Fitzpatrick. They're kind of bounced back and forth until Fitzpatrick really got the nod, but I think it's going to be a good quarterback battle out there in Vegas. What are you thinking, Garrett?
I think this is going to be the same situation that's going on with the Chicago Bears right now.
Ooh.
Derek Carr is going to start, and I bet you Mariota finishes the season. Because the way Derek Carr played last year was not very good. It actually was pretty atrocious. I feel like they're going to be like, all right, let's just give this guy a chance, put Mariota in. My only problem with Mariota is if you don't have a good run game, the guy is not a very good quarterback. He is a clock manager kind of style. Let's go out there, move the ball on the field, get a field goal, maybe a touchdown, run the clock off. But, I mean, I don't know. He's like a Tyrod Taylor, in my personal opinion. Just go out there and manage the game. That's what you can do.
Yeah. All right, let's jump over to the Falcons then. They released Devonta Freeman. They signed Todd Gurley to a 1-year, $6 million deal. Freeman last year was 20 overall in fantasy, 656 yards, 2 touchdowns, 410 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. Todd Gurley finished 14th overall, 857 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 2 receiving touchdowns. He was 5th overall in rushing touchdowns. So the Falcons get a guy in Todd Gurley. He's back in Georgia. I mean, this is exciting for them. I mean, Freeman's been struggling lately, and I mean, Todd Gurley has his injuries, but I feel like if you're Matt Ryan and you're this offense for the Falcons, you're excited about getting Todd Gurley, especially after Freeman's not been performing like he has been the last 2 years. I know there's been injury concerns, but I mean, a guy like Todd Gurley to pound the ball on the ground, but he can also catch it out of the backfield if they need to. This team could be dangerous on offense. So we'll jump to Doug. What do you think about this whole situation in Atlanta now?
I think it's a win-win for both sides. It's a 1-year show-me deal for Todd Gurley. He's going to come in, I guarantee you, with everything that happened with the Rams, with them cutting him unexpectedly. I bet he's going to come in really pissed, and he's going to try and use that as motivation and try and get himself back on track and try and, work through the arthritis and try and prove that he's still a top running back in the league.
Yeah. Garrett, you excited for Atlanta for this one?
Yeah, I'll agree with Doug. I think it's a win-win for both sides of both organizations. I just think it's a good trade.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams got Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson. I mean, I don't know which one's going to start. This is going to be a training camp type deal between the two, I feel like. But, in the end, I feel like it's more of a win for Atlanta because they just seem to have a better offense now. I mean, this is going to be interesting in LA for Jared Goff, in my opinion. I feel like he's going to have to pass the ball more, and he wasn't really doing that great passing the ball last year. So without having a guy like Todd Gurley in the background, how's that going to affect his game to be able to get the ball to guys like Cooper Kupp and those star fantasy wide receivers? Is this going to hurt him this year without Todd Gurley?
I'm not really sure. I think that he's going to be checking down a lot to his running backs. And I think we got to keep in mind the Rams have a pretty high-end draft pick this year, right?
I think so. I can take a look at
Yeah,
it.
because if they do, that means they could easily look at running back with that pick, because that's a team that really doesn't have a lot of holes. Yeah, they had some issues with coaching last year and the relationship between Sean McVay and Jared Goff. Goff struggled a lot last year, but I think they have enough weapons because, you have those 3-star receivers, and then you have Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett at tight end. You need to be able to get those guys to spread out a little bit and let them make the plays for Goff.
Yeah, it looks like the Rams don't have a first-round pick this year. They have a second round, 2/3, 4th, 6th, and 7th. So it doesn't look like in a mock draft that they're targeting a running back. But hey,
Okay.
I mean, if somebody's available there, I wouldn't be surprised if they took a shot at him. But
Yeah,
we'll see.
we'll have to see. Yeah, it seems like a Steelers situation in terms of draft picks for them.
Yeah.
They're going to have like a very small margin for error with where they're drafting. So we'll have to see what they do.
Yeah, Garrett, same question to you. Does this hurt the wide receiver core? They got 3 very good wide receivers. Cooper Kupp finished in the top 10 last year in fantasy. And is this going to hurt Goff without having a guy like Todd Gurley in the background?
I don't know if it's really going to hurt Goff. I mean, it could, and potential that now he doesn't have another pretty good running back there to hand the ball off to. But overall, I can see Goff and all 3 wide receivers potential in any fantasy draft being a good pick because they're going to be pass heavy this year. I don't see, unless they get someone good. Is C.J. Anderson still play there? No, he plays for Detroit, right?
Yes, Detroit.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So I don't honestly. They're going to be a pass first team. Anybody on that team I would draft in my fantasy league, whether I put on my bench or not, or start in my lineup, would be a good pick. That's how I feel.
I like it. So let's jump over. The Falcons did receive in a trade Hayden Hurst from Baltimore, so he's going to be their tight end. But the big news coming out of the Browns organization was the signing of Austin Hooper from Atlanta, now on the Browns. He is the highest paid tight end now, 4 years, $44 million deal. He had his best season last year. 787 yards on 75 catches, 6 touchdowns. He was 6th overall in fantasy, 4th in receiving touchdowns. He had more receiving touchdowns than Kittle and Kelsey, and tied with Zach Ertz. So obviously, this is interesting for him signing with the Browns. It gives it gives this Browns team another weapon. Obviously, it doesn't. It looks like Odell's still staying there. So, Doug, is this like an all-in time for this Browns team before they just like unload everybody, or what are we looking at in Cleveland this year with the signing of Austin Hooper?
All I gotta say is, if Baker Mayfield does not make this work this year, hell is going to freeze over in that city. Because I mean, I don't understand it, man. I don't know how much easier it can get for you. You have 2 all-pro wide receivers, an all-pro tight end, and Njoku is still a really good red zone threat. You have great running backs. I just don't get how you can't succeed. Plus their offensive line is fantastic.
Yeah, to me, this is. I mean, the Browns' hype has been coming along the last couple of years with Mayfield. Now Odell's coming. Now you get Austin Hooper. Like, Garrett, this has to be the year for the Browns, right? Otherwise, they're going to unload.
Dude, I don't know. They're going to have to start firing some people up there, or just shut down the whole organization, because you can drop all this money and still suck. There's something wrong. I think they went overboard a little bit on this trade, on this signing, but I don't know. If there's other places I feel like they could have, used more talent on their field than besides a tight end. You're pretty much kind of giving up on Njoku.
Yeah, and I mean, I mean, they still had Ricky Seals. He had 4 touchdowns last year that filled in for Njoku with his injury. Njoku is still a very good tight end, so I think they did overpay for Hooper here. I mean, if you're Hooper, you're like, what do I have to lose? If I don't do good, I'm getting paid all this money, and if I do good, I'm looking like a hero for coming to Cleveland and saving the day. So, I mean, he doesn't have much to lose, but man, Mayfield, this is it for him. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't set up a team with better offensive threats at almost every position, even at the running back with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Like, man, this has to be it.
Honestly, if they would have signed Nick Foles instead of going after Austin Hooper, that would have been a better pickup, in my opinion, because then you have a fail safe. If, let's say Baker doesn't do well, then you go straight. You're like, let's bring in Foles. We know he's at least somebody that we can do. I don't know. I just the whole signing's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But we got to keep in mind, Chase Daniel is such a Brown signing. A complete, just career backup quarterback, football guy. It just makes so much sense for them. And I need to make this hot take. I'm dropping this bomb now. If it comes to fruition in a year or two, I'm going to be a genius. If it does not work this year, within the next year or two, Baker Mayfield will be the quarterback for the New England Patriots.
Wow.
Oh,
interesting.
Yes.
Baker Mayfield to New England. If it doesn't work this year, I'm thinking Baker Mayfield's replacing that Walker guy in the XFL. That's where he's headed. Man, yeah, you can't be as loaded with a team. I mean, he's got to do it this year. I'm still not going to draft him in fantasy until he proves something to me. But
yeah,
man, I'll tell you what, this Browns team's got to go for it. So let's just jump real quick while we're still in the state of Ohio, just real quick. Bengals franchise tagged AJ Green. Does that mean that Burrow is going to go number 1 overall?
I think it does. I feel like it's a no-brainer at this point because you need a franchise quarterback. Andy Dalton's a good, solid QB, but I don't think that he's the answer for them at this point in time. They've tried for years with him, and it just hasn't worked. So I think they got to go with Burrow and try and develop him into an NFL talent.
Yeah, I mean, he said that he wants AJ Green franchise tagged, and they did that. So that's what Burrow said. So I have a feeling that he's going to go number 1. What do you think? Same thing, Garrett?
Yeah, give me the same thing.
Yeah, but this Bengals team's still not going to be great even with Burrow, in my opinion. But that makes the Steelers look a little bit better for this year.
I just love that Burrow's already calling shots.
Yeah,
this is like prime LeBron type stuff. I love
it. Yeah. Draft me number 1, give me AJ Green, and we'll be good to go.
They have to do a lot of signing. I think they have to do a lot of offensive line rework to get the protection Burrows needs.
Yep, that's going to be a big draft for them this year if they want to make a move. So let's end the show by talking about the big Texans-Cardinals trade that dropped. What a shocker. First, we heard that David Johnson is going to the Texans, and then you hear that they're sending away Hopkins. Just crazy. Now you got 2 Johnsons at running back. You got Duke Johnson, David Johnson, there in Houston. Duke Johnson last year was 29th overall in fantasy, 410 yards. And he also had the same amount of receiving yards, 410. 2 rushing touchdowns, 3 receiving. Carlos Hyde is now a free agent, but he had over 1,000 yards rushing last year, 6 touchdowns, 12th overall in rushing. Now they had David Johnson, who 345 yards last year, 2 rushing touchdowns, 4 receiving touchdowns. It's interesting, this trade. Then you get Hopkins, who's one of the best wide receivers in the league. He was 5th overall last year, 3rd in receiving or in receptions, 10th in receiving yards, 13th in touchdowns with 7. So this is interesting. Doug, I'll just have you dive into it, but in the end, who really won this trade?
I think it's a win for both sides, especially in terms of the players involved with Johnson and Hopkins, because with the Texans, they were so desperate at running back that I believe they were the only team that was willing to absorb all of that contract. So I think it was just one of those things. And DeAndre Hopkins needed a long-term extension. The Texans were not going to be able to do that, especially with them needing to sign DeShaun Watson very soon. So I think it was just one of those money moves where it is kind of lopsided, but it makes sense for both sides from a business perspective.
Yeah. What are you thinking, Garrett? Who wins this trade?
And I mean, I can agree with Doug, but it's kind of leaning more to like the Cardinals.
Yes.
Now you're given a really young quarterback a really prime time wide receiver to throw to. Yes, now it does free up space for the Houston Texans in the long run to give DeShaun Watson the money that he deserves. But now who is he going to throw to? Who else besides Will Fuller does he have to throw to?
Kenny Stills.
Yeah.
Okay.
And their
Yeah.
tight end did pretty well last year.
Yeah, but they're not a Hopkins. You know what I'm saying? Kenny Stills is no Hopkins. Will Fuller is no Hopkins, but Will Fuller Will Fuller could be a number one receiver in any other team if he went to a certain team.
Yeah, he could easily be a number one if he stayed healthy. I feel like he always gets to that point like where he's ready to turn a corner and then some sort of catastrophic injury occurs. It's very unfortunate.
Yeah. Now, I'll say that I think it's a bigger win for the Cardinals because of that addition. You're giving Kyle Murray, who, coming off his rookie season, you're giving him a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. You still got Fitzgerald there that can still do well. And Kenyon Drake in the backfield, who did really well last year. I think this team's going to do better. I don't think they're still going to be elite, but I'll make the argument that Murray will have a better fantasy season than Baker Mayfield in Cleveland with all those weapons. I think Murray's going to come out big this year with the addition to Hopkins, in my opinion. And I think this is going to be, as long as he can stay healthy, man, this is going to be fun to watch Murray throwing to Hopkins. But we'll see. David Johnson, I think he'll have better season in Houston. But again, how much is this going to affect Watson as a fantasy quarterback? Where do you see him going, Doug?
I think Watson will still be okay because it's not like a Ryan Tannehill situation where he needs his receivers to be really good to succeed. I feel like DeShaun Watson has enough raw talent to still, be of value on his own. So I think that he'll be fine.
What are you thinking, Garrett? Is Watson still QB1 or is he going to drop to QB2 because of this?
Nah, he'll be a QB1 still. It's just, I think you'll see him scrambling a lot more with his legs instead of trying to force a ball in a tight area where Hopkins could probably make the catch. But overall, he's still a number one quarterback.
Yeah, and they added on Randall Cobb too. This Texans team.
He's pretty old though.
Yeah, but Darren Fells last year at the tight end, he did very well for them, and I could feel like he could have a breakout season. He had 7 touchdowns last year at tight end, so you take away the threat of Hopkins, you give a safety valve. You could see Fells come up as a top 10 easy tight end in fantasy this year.
Oh, true.
Yeah, I agree.
So he's give somebody, but I think this is the year where, Watson's this is going to be Watson's year to see how good he is. I mean, he's a talented quarterback, but he's going to have to work the hardest, in my opinion, than he has out of every year that he's played. This is going to be the year to see what he's really made of. Is he going to step up or not? And taking away his number one threat at wide receiver. But, again, getting a guy like David Johnson who can definitely perform. He's struggled with some injuries, but before his injury 2 years ago, he was a dominant running back in the league. So if he can bring that to Houston, I still see them being a pretty good team. And defensively, I mean, they're still good.
And I think we have to keep in mind that David Johnson's put into a greater position to succeed already just because of how good the Houston's offensive line is.
Yeah.
Or how much better it is compared to Arizona.
Yeah, I agree. All right, guys. Any last thoughts before we close off this first week of our podcast?
I got one. Kyler Murray is going to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback.
I can agree with Doug with that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Garrett.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think he's going to take a big. He really showed some good skill and some good talent in some of the games last year. So, give him a guy like that on the team, and still Fitzgerald on the team. I mean, and Christian Kirk, who did really well last year too. Those are. I still like the veteran Fitzgerald on the team. He still can ball, but I mean, adding guys like Hopkins and still having Kirk there and Kenny and Drake, like this offense should succeed. The defense is iffy, but we'll see. I agree with Doug. So we'll see what happens, but we're going to plan on doing this every week. It'll be something to do. Everybody watch for the coronavirus. Obviously, fantasy football doesn't start for months ahead, but we got to take a look at it now, pre-draft, talk about the big news, and then over the summer we'll just look at each team and see what we can do. So I don't know if you can see it, but on Doug's name down there at Doug_Glatke, DOUG_GLATTKE, that is his Twitter handle. Go follow him. Mine is up there, BenM1336. We're going to be posting this to our YouTube page. I think Doug's going to post it to a couple places, probably our Facebook page. But we do have Twitter for the podcast. I believe is it roast_M pod, I think?
Yes. Yes, it is.
M pod for our Twitter. So go follow that. Doug keeps that up to date pretty well. And I'm sure we'll be adding more now that we're putting up podcasts. Our Instagram is RM_fantasy football. And we like to post on there some questions. If there's if you guys have any viewer questions, comment below, go on our social media, ask us. We'll give you a shout out, put it in the video and talk about it and discuss it. But we're trying to, improve from what we did last year. We got better equipment this year. We'll look to have a lot of fun and give some input in it. So I want to thank the guys for joining me tonight. It's good to be back, especially when you're sitting around all day if you're not working. Garrett, how's your game doing over there, your Madden game?
Not bad. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
not bad at all.
It feels good to be back on Madden. I was thinking about that today when I was studying up on this free agency stuff. I was like, yeah.
I'll tell you what I'm excited to talk about, though.
What's that?
I hope we cover it next week. This Tom Brady signing.
I'm sure we're going to get to it. I'm sure we might need a whole show just for Tom Brady.
I can talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like we'll need a whole show for that. That's why I want to get this out of the way. But most likely that'll be coming next week, some Tom Brady stuff. Signing with Tampa Bay. What does that look like for Tampa Bay? And what does that look like for New England? So we'll break that down for you guys. Enjoy this time to yourself. Obviously, now we got an extra month to go on this coronavirus, at least till we can not social distance no more. We can get within 6 feet of each other and, more than 10 people in a room. And so we'll see what happens. But thanks all for watching. Again, subscribe, like the page. If you have any questions, we will talk about them on our podcast. So have a good one, everyone.